Right, today on BloombergQuint, we are joined by Roy Price. He heads global content at Amazon Prime Video. Roy, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Roy, I'd like to start by asking you guys have been here since December last year in India. When you have set up Amazon Prime Video in locations all around the world, what has your experience in India been like, and have you had to adopt a very different approach towards the Indian market?
Well, you know, what we say is you can have a global service, but there are no global customers. There are only local customers. Everybody lives in a particular place, comes from a particular culture, language, and so we have a lot of shows that we have everywhere. But then on top of that, we've licensed a lot of Indian movies in particular. Right. And you know, Sultan has been doing well recently, and The Joker, and now we're working on Indian original series, which will be important for the future.
Interesting. So is localization key in when you guys are approaching markets like this? Because I know you've also had, you guys announced a deal with Paramount as well when it comes to Paramount's content.
Yeah, there are some things that have sort of international appeal, and we have a lot of those things, including some of our Amazon Studios originals that we've produced out of Amazon Studios in LA. But you really have to pursue what we call a multi-local strategy, where you have you can have international things, but you also have a lot of things that are appealing to the local customer.
Interesting, Roy. You know, and also when it comes to Amazon Prime Video, in India, we obviously, when a subscriber actually signs up for it, they spend, what, 500 rupees for a yearly package, and you also get Amazon Prime's services, which is fantastic, timely deliveries as well. Do you think that has held you in good stead when it comes to other competitors in the market, be it a Netflix or local players?
Well, it's an important differentiator. I mean, we have both a video service and the shipping, and it does, yes, make it the best deal of all time. And so I think it is a great combination. There's really nothing around the world like Amazon Prime. So it's a good combination so far, and people seem to be responding to it. But
you know, also when it comes to setting up in India and what operations have been like, you know, a recent report says you guys have nearly 9.5 million subscribers, which is no mean feat. Is that true?
Well, I can't speak to the exact number, but I'd say the early uptake has been excellent, and we're encouraged.
So when it comes to setting up in a place like India, or any other geography for that matter, it's about content production, original content, like you said, Amazon Originals, and there's also, of course, partnerships that you guys come up with. Is there some sort of a number that you guys have in terms of investment for India that you could point towards?
We have a significant overall commitment to India, and then the budget for the video portion of the service is really determined by looking at, you know, what we would need to provide a compelling service to Indian customers. And once we put that together from sort of the bottom up, then we knew what the budget had to be.
The reason I spoke about content over here is because, you know, Netflix has commented before saying that the Indian content market is like a war zone, it's like a battleground when it comes to winning content or bidding for content. What has your experience been like over here in India, especially when you're tying up with local content providers or perhaps content creators?
Well, first of all, I think there's a great energy about the Indian market, and there's a great history of storytelling and cinema. And so it's a great opportunity to get with some of the real artists and filmmakers and try to empower them to tell, you know, Indian stories that have a real universal sort of resonance. And I don't really think of it as a battleground. I would describe it almost more as like a gymnastics competition, where technically there is competition, but you're not like individually struggling with someone, you're just trying to do the best that you can do. And if we focus on making customers happy with Amazon Prime and making the most talented filmmakers and creators and actors happy and inspired, and we can do both of those things, then I think we'll be able to have a great video service, and early signs are very positive.
Right, and also when it comes to subscription plans, like you mentioned, that bundle that you guys offer with the Prime services as well and video, it's working really well for you guys. But could we expect that in the next year to perhaps change when it comes to India? Because you've announced plans in the US which vary, right? In India, could we also expect some different subscription plans perhaps?
Well, I think the main subscription plan to focus on is Prime as a whole.
Right.
Which has multiple benefits,
right.
And we think there are great synergies there, and people are responding well to it. In some other countries, we have Prime Video only,
right?
And then it's a little different, but here you have multiple services.
But Troy, when you're pitching what Amazon Prime Video does, and especially in the initial years, right? When you guys were actually pitching this globally, how difficult was it to actually convince content creators to actually come onto this digital OTT platform? I mean, how difficult has it been to convince people to embrace digital, really, especially traditional filmmakers and content creators in India and around the world?
Well, a few years ago, we did have to put a real effort into explaining to filmmakers and the representatives what we were trying to do, and how we wanted to have very high standards and high budgets and really ambitious programming for the world, and so that was a bit of an effort. I think our credibility was helped by the fact that all of their packages had been delivered on time for years.
So the reputation was safe.
So the reputation was there. We started ahead of the game, but we did have to explain things. Since then, we won the Golden Globe for Best Comedy Series 2 years in a row. We won the Emmy for Best Preschool Show. Right. We won 3 Oscars. So now we don't have to do that as much. I think people understand that we want to get behind their most ambitious project and distribute their best work.
Yeah, something I want to ask you. When it comes to Amazon and what Amazon is doing, all throughout with all their products and services, it's very interesting to actually watch from a vantage point, because you've offered Amazon Prime Video with Amazon Prime. You have a leading e-commerce business as well. You have Amazon Web Services. Then you also have stuff in the software and hardware space, like Alexa and your personal assistant.
Right.
And now you guys
are amazing.
And you've also ventured into other markets with the Amazon Fire TV stick, right? So essentially, is this something that Amazon is consciously doing to actually create an ecosystem for its users? So if I'm using something, I'm only using Amazon through and through, or is this something that just happens naturally, organically?
It's really the organic part. I mean, I don't think anybody at Amazon wakes up and tries to think about, there's going to be this ecosystem and then here's a hardware and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I really think everybody at Amazon wakes up in the morning and thinks, what is an exciting and new thing we can do for customers today that they would actually care about? And then goes out and does it. And it happens that, these are in different areas. You have the Fire Stick, you have web services, which is amazing. You have Prime Video. I think people are enjoying that. And, now they have a physical store in Seattle where you can
absolutely
just go in and take stuff and walk out. And
completely automated.
Yeah, and it's automated, which is fantastic. The one thing that ties all of this together is it's driven by focus on the customer and a sense of innovation.
It's very interesting. Getting back to Amazon Prime Video, another thing that I wanted to ask you was, when you look at the Indian market, getting back to the content bit, in India we have local Indian broadcast channels, which have digital OTT players already. We have Hotstar, we have Voot. These are, essentially taking even channel coverage and some of their shows and giving you content. Netflix aside, does it seem like a very cluttered market now that you guys have entered it since December?
Again, it is. I think it's not that helpful to think about the other, whatever the competitors might be. It's actually a little limiting, because when you think about what you can do for customers, what you can provide for customers, and how you can make this attractive for creators, you don't want somebody else to be your point of reference. What your point of reference should be, what would they think is fantastic, way up here. And if your competitor is almost there or nowhere near there, it's still, you should focus on, what would be a great video service, what would be a great proposal from the point of view of a top filmmaker. We really just try to focus on that.
Roy, as a last question, you actually moved from pure play Hollywood to the tech industry a few years ago. What was that shift like for you personally, and what really prompted that? Is it that you saw this, technology wave really coming your way?
Well, I was working in the traditional television industry, and could have stayed there, and but I felt the internet was going to be big, and
good spot.
Yeah, good catch, and I felt it was going to change everything about how we consume TV and how we develop it, and I just had to be a part of it. So I wound up going up to Seattle to Amazon, and there were some cultural differences. In tech, nobody goes out to lunch. If you left your work to go out to lunch, they would think you were retiring or something. But and this is really throughout tech. People, that's just not a cultural trait. But a lot of it was not unfamiliar, because there's a real excitement in technology about doing something new and innovative and fun, and I thought from Hollywood that part was very familiar, and so it really was not a difficult transition. I could just bring lunch from home and everything would be okay.
On that note, thanks so much, Roy, for speaking to us on BloombergQuint.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.